Thank you for watching a new edition of This Week in Pro Football. Fidel Barraza with you alongside, like always, Walter Stringer. What's going on, Walt?
Another eventful week in football. Of course, we very quickly are at week 3 already. Um, I was kind of grateful the first 2 weeks of the season that we were able to get through without any major injuries and such. But after week 2, that's not so much the story anymore.
Yep, and Walt, let's start off with the biggest story from the weekend. Joe Burrow, quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. It looks like he's going to be placed on IR, and he's expected to miss 3 months after surgery to repair a torn ligament in his toe. Once, I don't know about you all, but when I saw the injury, I was like, oh, did he maybe break an ankle? Because he wasn't getting up, right? But turns out it was a toe, and he's probably going to be out the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think it's beyond frustrating for the Cincinnati Bengals. You look at what they went through. Uh, some of it was self-inflicted over the past 2 off seasons, maybe 3 off seasons with a lot of their best players. Paying the money that you paid Joe Burrow, consider the fact that you had a bad situation involving your last franchise quarterback in Carson Palmer. Well, your best franchise quarterback. Carson wasn't the last. Andy Dalton was actually the last. But, you know, it's frustrating because when he's on the field, it's obvious how good this guy is, how elite he is. From the pocket, he's a surgeon. And I don't want it to seem like he's hurt every year because statistically he hasn't been hurt every year. But out of 6 seasons, this being the sixth one right now, he's only played every game 3 out of those 6 seasons. He played 2 games this season. Now you're talking about him missing 3 months. Uh, Probably we could say that if this team is out of playoff contention, which we kind of expect them to be, he may not play another game this season. I think it would be foolish to bring him back to a team that's what. So by the time he's scheduled to come back, we're talking about this team potentially could be 2-6, 2-7 or something, 2-8 maybe.
And Walt, that's just a timeline. Who knows? It might be longer than 3 months, right? But essentially, 3 months. What that puts us in December. I mean, who knows where the
Right.
Bengals are going to be? Jake Browning is going to be the starting quarterback for the Bengals for now, right? I mean, he played okay, right? But he had some really bad turnovers on Sunday as well.
Yeah, he did. But they've got a lot of history with Jake. Remember the last time 2 years ago when Burrow went down for the last few games of the season, they were able to keep the boat kind of afloat a little bit, even though they
Yep.
still failed to make the playoffs. But they've got some familiarity with John Browning, with Jake Browning, but he's not Joe. At least we think. But we've seen stranger situations where guys step in and catch fire, and the team has success without the star quarterback. But I just think it's just very frustrating, man, because for a team that's built the way they're built, which everyone has already stated how they felt about it, that this team is built incorrectly financially and everything roster wise. We said this before the season started that if they lose Joe Burrow, it's over. Now, you can say that for pretty much every team in the league, I think, that has even an adequate quarterback for that matter. But typically, if you have a pretty good roster, good defense, strong defense, a running game, good offensive line, solid coaching, you can survive without your star quarterback. You may not go far in the playoffs, but you can at least survive without him. This team was already struggling with the offensive line. They were struggling to get the running game going. The defense, as expected, hasn't played well the first couple games. So you're stuck with 2 wide receivers that you paid a ton of money to and not a damn thing else. So I think this situation should really shine light on the Bengals for themselves as an organization in regards to how they handle this situation moving forward. Because what if this team does go down the distance that we think they will, which is badly? Because I had this team predicted to be picking in the top 5 in the draft during the all season about 3 months ago. And I know we're a long way from the draft and everything, but this is a team that may need this because even if you get the number 1 overall pick, you're not drafting the quarterback. Of course not. They need defensive help. They need offensive line help. This is a team that really does need the number 1 overall pick, I believe, from a trade standpoint. So like I said, if you're Cincinnati, all you can do is say, hey, you know what? The season isn't over. Um, there's still 52 guys in this locker room. They're going to all play for each other and any other type of rhetoric you can throw out. But this is a team that's not set up for a backup quarterback to step in and have success.
Yeah. Now they did, win the game on Sunday against Jacksonville. So they're 2-0 now, right? I mean, last year, slow start for them. They got things going in the right direction this season, but obviously this is a setback with Joe Burrow not being on the field.
Of course, like I said, I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, top 5, top 4, however you put it. But the best ability is availability, and like I said, for a team that's built as incorrectly as they are built, I don't know what we can really expect from them down the stretch of this season.
All right, well, let's go and move on. Let's talk about another quarterback injury, and that's with the Vikings starting quarterback J.J. McCarthy. Turns out he had an ankle injury during the game against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football, and he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks with an injury. We talked about it before we got on here, right? We thought it was a little bit weird that right off the bat, essentially, like, hey, he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, you can take it however you choose to take it. At least radio here in Detroit, Lions fans, you can take that however you take that as well. But there's been a little conspiracy going around Minnesota that it was more of a benching, more so than him being hurt. I believe he's hurt. I don't think they're making up an injury or whatever, or over exaggerating the injury. But as you mentioned, he didn't play well at all. He stunk against Atlanta. He didn't play great or set the world on fire the first half against Chicago last week, but he did play well in the second half, bounced back, and led some scoring drives in the fourth quarter, which showed a lot of potential promise. Personally, I'm not in the room of feeling that they benched him. I do understand that when you're a young quarterback, you come into a situation. We discussed this before we actually started recording the video. We made the comparison to the San Francisco 49ers. And it's not always the best situation for a quarterback to go to a team that's already ready-made to compete, because the leash with you is going to be a lot shorter. Whether or not Trey Lance had the stuff to really play quarterback in the NFL, we'll never know. But at the end of the day, it was the amount of slack that they cut you in this day and age is severely short. And, if you look at JJ's situation, are the Vikings on the level that the 49ers were 3 years ago? Probably not, but they were a 14-win team a year ago. So they're a good football team. Defense is solid. They've improved the offensive line. Now, they did just place Aaron Jones today on IR as well.
Mm-hmm.
You got Jordan Addison still out. So if I'm them, I'm not benching my essentially rookie quarterback. The kid didn't play at all last season. So it just seems strange to me that he would show so much promise in week 1 on the road against Chicago in a hostile environment, regardless of how we feel about Chicago now. He played so well in the fourth quarter. It doesn't seem to me like they would turn around and bench him 1 week later.
So I think he does have an injury. Do I think it's severe for him to be out 2 to 4 weeks? I don't think so. He just didn't look good, man, on Sunday. It was really a really bad performance. I understand the week before that, really bad half. Second half, a lot better. And he was one of the reasons why they won the football game. But to me, it's kind of a little bit of both. Injury, but also for him, I know he just had a baby last week, right? So a lot of things are on this young man's plate, right? And maybe the focus is not all there right now in football. So he does have an ankle injury. I'm sure they want him to take care of it, but maybe him taking sit down a couple weeks is going to help him the rest of the year. And Carson Wentz is going to be the quarterback this Sunday for the Vikings.
Yeah, and you brought it up to me in the pre-show, and now it makes a lot more sense to me. I think that's a beautiful thing as an organization if they are looking out for their kid quarterback, because like you said, he played a decent amount of time at Michigan, but he's still a baby in regards to the NFL. Having a kid, for everybody out there, every guy out there that's a father, we can all relate to how those early stages of being the dad, man, and getting home early in the morning and not being able to go to sleep because you got to watch the baby. And falling asleep later on in the afternoon just for the baby to wake back up and wake you up. So now you're up, and there's just a lot that goes on with it. So if they're trying to, add some mental stability for the kid, I respect that a lot, because if they truly believe in him, that he's the guy, you still got to nurture him. At the end of the day, it's about the next 13, 14 years, not just the next game.
Yeah, and we'll see what Carson Wentz does. We'll see how he performs
Well,
for the Vikings.
I expect Wentz to perform decent. How decent, I don't know. But it's, once again, this is another situation. What if the backup steps in and plays really well?
And that's what I was thinking about earlier, because Kevin
It
O'Connell, I
happened with
mean,
last year with Darnold.
yeah, exactly. So who knows? But also with the Aaron Jones injury, they did sign running back Cam Akers. I think it's like his third or fourth time with the team now.
Yeah. So I wasn't a big fan of their running back room to begin with. And, Jordan Addison missing time, Jones down now. That was the veteran presence that they had. I'm not sure how good they were going to be with JJ for 17 games. So even now with Wentz, Wentz could play well. Could it be another Sam Darnold situation potentially? But there's still a cap on their ceiling overall at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and well, let's talk about younger players, right? I know, Omarion Hampton didn't have the best game yesterday. Ashton Genty didn't have the best game. AJ's been struggling. Are the expectations way too high for some fan bases with these young players?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're super irrational. Um, and what makes things worse is when you see a young quarterback, especially at the quarterback position. Look at CJ Stroud. Just 3 years ago, well, this is year 3 now. His rookie season, he was looking tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. And everyone was saying how the Carolina Panthers made the wrong decision with Bryce Young and yada yada yada. That's neither here nor there. But I don't think he's played as bad as some people try to make it out that he has been. But he didn't play particularly really well year 2, but he still managed to get his team to the playoffs. And to me that should count for something. But people, the media's turned on him. You got some fans in Houston that have turned on him as well. And you look at Jaden Daniels, and Jaden was with the best thing since sliced bread a year ago. Washington pretty much did not a damn thing to build around him offensively, neither defensively. That's an old ass defense, and they lost a decent amount of people offensively. They went through a public bidding war with their best wide receiver, their best offensive skill position player, period. And you're seeing now through 2 games, Jaden has been decent, but Jaden can only do so much. And I think it's unfair to put these kids in these situations. And we mentioned Genty for you guys with the Vegas Raiders. People are already saying that the Raiders made the wrong decision at number 6. And is that possible? We won't know to the end of this season, maybe even next season, because it doesn't take running backs long. I mentioned before we started the show about Jahmyr Gibbs and how Jahmyr Gibbs' first 6 games, I believe, here 6 or 7 games, there were people here saying he was a bust because he couldn't. It's all about patience. It's all about patience, because when you're in high school, when you're in college, you're the best athlete on the field. You got the best offensive lineman. A lot of times you're playing against crap other programs. So allow these running backs to have some sort of adjustment period, man. Because now if he's no good by the end of the season, I'd be worried. But I would say a running back of his talent, of his caliber, they typically figure it out within the first half of the season.
All right. Well, let's go and move on. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. They dropped their second game in a row to the Eagles, 2017. Also, this is the first time since 2014 that the Chiefs are 0-2 to start the season. This is the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era that that's occurred. Is the Chiefs dynasty over?
Over in regards to them making AFC Championship game appearances and Super Bowl appearances, no, I don't think so. Could this season potentially prove to be a retooling season? It's possible, but they have to also draft better and make better acquisitions in free agency, man. Listen, I was going through some numbers on Kansas City during the first 2 games of the season. You're talking about an offense right now that's 24th in the league in points scored. The defense is 27th in takeaways. They got 1 takeaway through 2 games. They're also, and just trying to tie all of these things together, if you look at average starting position, the average starting position is 20. They're on 28, which is 24th in the league. They're also, if you look at the rushing attack, which is crazy, they're 28th in the league in rushing attempts. But they're 6th in the league in yards per attempt at 5.1. So I don't understand. To me, this is the most out of whack I've seen an Andy Reid offense since Kevin Cobb with the Philadelphia Eagles. It's like they're just throwing blank at the wall just to see what works. It's like, okay, you know what? We're gonna make this passing game work. We don't give a damn how it happens. And Patrick Mahomes doesn't have those weapons. Kelsey isn't Kelsey from 7 years ago. They still haven't solved the wide receiver position for that guy. They never went out over the past 4 years, as I suggested they should do, and draft a young backup tight end to groom behind him, a young playmaking tight end. They didn't go after Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs a couple years ago, or Marion Hampton or Travion Henderson, who keeps making plays for the New England Patriots. They've mishandled a lot. And you look at the tackle position now, Josh Simmons looks like a keeper. But, and I said this a couple years ago, they were making a big mistake not re-signing Orlando Brown Jr. I don't know what it was. He ultimately left and got less money than he could have got from Kansas City. But to me, it felt like Kansas City felt like he snubbed him because he didn't take the initial offer that they made him. But you're kind of cutting your nose off to spite your face because your quarterback needs him. Orlando Brown Jr. was still at that point in time one of the 5 best tackles in all of football. So, they've mishandled a lot of situations on the offensive side of the ball. Now, defensively, they've been great since Tyreek Hill was shipped up out of there. But another thing I noticed the first 2 games of the season, like the last 4 years or 3 years, those are the type of games they were winning because the opponents were screwing these games away. How are you going to win games when you can't crack 20 points and the opponents aren't creating brain farts? It's teams kind of figured them out a little bit now. I think, if you don't play so tight, play a little bit more aggressive offensively against them. Now, the Eagle game was different because the Eagles and Chiefs know each other so well. I had the Chiefs winning that game. Actually, I predicted, but I knew it was going to be close because those teams know each other too damn well. But like I said, for a team that can't score, they've been struggling to score ever since they traded Tyreek Hill. So if you can't score, you refuse to run the football when you need to, you have no consistent pass threat in the pass game, your tackle play is still shaky at best, and the defense isn't getting any takeaways to give Patrick Mahomes extra possessions, how do you plan on winning games? So if you're asking me, is this season over? It could possibly be. If you look at that Giants game, not looking too far ahead, but that pass rush against that offensive line could be a problem. And if that team goes 0-3, it could be rough, man.
And Patrick Mahomes essentially is trying to do everything he can, right, to have the offense do something, right? We've seen him rush more these last 2 weeks that we kind of did last season, right? He said it himself. He usually saves it for the playoffs, but he felt that this offense needed a spark. Kelsey had a really bad drop towards the end of the game in the end zone, right? He's not the same player he used to be. Cannot establish a running game with Isaiah Pacheco or Kareem Hunt. And they're just committing a lot of penalties too on Sunday.
Yeah, like I said, this is the most undisciplined, out of whack team that I've seen, as far as in Kansas City's case, that I've seen since Tyreek Hill hasn't been there. We forgot the year after they traded Hill, there were all the rumors going around how poorly, in regards to why Patrick Mahomes was playing so poorly, and his brother's the problem, and his girlfriend's the problem. There were all this stuff going on, but they were still managing to win games. So when you still win games, people pretty much don't give a damn. But you can't expect, and not in the NFL. The talent is spread so evenly across the entire NFL that it's only a matter of time before the rest of the league is going to catch up with you. You can't expect to just keep winning 19 to 16 games year after year after year and think nobody's going to eventually out talent you or out execute you. So, the Chiefs are in a situation right now where they can have some losses piling up. Before the season started, I talked about the matchup with the Lions in a few weeks. The Lions could go in there and smash that team. Just being honest about it with the way they currently look. And Andy Reid is great, so Andy's not going anywhere unless Andy wants to leave. But they have to figure out over this offseason how to not waste this man's prime in Patrick Mahomes.
And speaking of the Lions, they had a big bounce back game against the Chicago Bears. My lock of the week last week. Well, I told you they were going to win and win big, they did. Dropped 50 points on the Chicago Bears and ruined Ben Johnson's homecoming, per se, in Detroit.
Absolutely. That team was amped up. I didn't imagine that the Bears would perform as poorly as they did. They weren't great last Monday night against Minnesota, but I did expect them to play a little bit better. The defense wasn't too bad prior week against Minnesota, but just keeping it to the Lions. It was great to see my offensive line wake up. Now, was it just the Chicago Bears? It could be, but we'll find out. We'll find out more about the Detroit Lions next Monday night against the Baltimore Ravens. But yeah, I mean, listen, this is what you see, and this is what you get from the Detroit Lions when they're clicking on all cylinders. When that offense is humming, when the running game is ignited, and St. Brown's catching his passes underneath, and J-Mo's getting open deep, and Goff has time to find him, and Goff played with a little bit more spunk this past week. He even did a little dive into the crowd. He wasn't athletic enough to get completely all the way up there, but it's good to see that team bounce back and have that type of reaction after the week 1 performance against the Green Bay Packers, because some fans here were starting to jump off the boat a little bit, but that's what you go through a 17-game season in the NFL. Every week is its own chapter, and fans jump off the boat, they jump back on the boat, they jump back off. But like I said, we played damn good in every aspect of the game. I felt, even in the secondary. We did lose Marcus Davenport, which is no shock at all, to extended period of time. That's something that we've kind of, come to grips with here, that if you have Marcus Davenport on your football team, it's a good chance he'll never give you a full season. But low pay, no high risk at all. We'll just next man up, Al-Qadim Muhammad. But so what do you think? Because you had it locked. Ashanti Beasley, my co-host on Lions Avenue, also had the Lions beating the brakes off the Bears at his lock of the week. But what did you see?
Look, they had a really bad performance against Green Bay. We know that. After the game, there was a question that was asked of Dan Campbell if he thought the issue was the coordinators not being there and the office not being creative enough. And he essentially called them out. What wasn't creative about it? What did you see? Motion? We had some motion, right? To me, it was more of Ben Johnson coming back and being in Detroit. He left for a divisional opponent, right? And then all the hype around the Chicago Bears this offseason, right, with Ben Johnson being there, was going to groom Caleb to be the next great quarterback, things like that. I just had a feeling that they're going to be up for this game, especially home in Detroit. I want to read you a stat. So Jared Goff went 28-34 for 334 yards and five touchdowns. So completion percentage of 82%.
Yeah. He's not the most athletically gifted quarterback. He's not the most dynamic playmaker when things break down. But when you give Jared Goff time and guys are getting open and he's in rhythm, he's just as good as anybody else in the league. And playing in that stadium, it's hell. It's hell playing there. If you go back to last season, Tampa beat us week 2. Of course, we lost the playoff game to the Commanders. We haven't lost a game at home since, we lost 2 at home, counting those 2 I
Buffalo
just mentioned.
last year too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Well, that was the season before
Wasn't last
last
season?
against Buffalo. No, we ain't played Buffalo last season. We played Buffalo the 9-8 season, which was a couple seasons
I'm pretty
ago,
sure you guys.
before the
I could have
12
sworn
wins.
you guys played last year because the CBS was on the road. I might be wrong, but
No, we ain't, not last year. We ain't played Buffalo last year.
all right. Well, they got a big win. Obviously, we'll see how things go from here on out. They got a big showdown against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Last time they played in Baltimore, things did not go well.
Yeah, it's been ugly against Baltimore, to say the least, man. Listen, we haven't. I'm dating myself a little bit here, but we haven't beaten Baltimore, period, since Deion Sanders' last season in the league when he was with Baltimore. Sean Bryson, and that was here in Detroit when Sean Bryson was playing for the Detroit Lions. So that's how long it's been since we've actually beaten the Baltimore Ravens. It's a statement game, I feel. Some fans around here aren't making that big of a deal about it. I am, because when you're one of the better teams in the league and you consider yourself to be one of the better teams in the league, these are games that you don't get the doors blown off you. There's no shame in losing to Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, and the Baltimore Ravens. But if you're a real good football team, you don't go to Baltimore and lose by 40. You don't go there and lose by 25, 30 points. Every time Buffalo plays Baltimore, and now granted, I understand that they've got Josh Allen. The Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills play each other essentially every single season, so they know each other really well. But still, if you're one of the better teams in the league, you don't go to Baltimore and get hammered by Lamar by 40. So to me, it's a statement game. Regardless if Baltimore is good this year or not, they can still score points. The defense was the issue week 1 against Buffalo. They were able to score some points, but the Ravens have their own issues. The Ravens seem to just consistently shoot themselves in the foot, shoot themselves in the kneecap, shoot themselves in the hand. In crunch time, and you brought this up a few days ago, man, like the record given, like losing these games with blowing leads is crazy, man. But you can't really blame John Harbaugh for it. I mean, is it his fault Andrews dropped the pass? Is it his fault Marquise Brown dropped passes? Is it his fault the Zay Flowers had the idiot penalties he had in the playoffs a couple years ago? Was it his fault Derrick Henry fumbled the ball a couple weeks ago? They just have some of the worst damn luck. Say the least, no damn excuses. Lions got to go there next Monday night and shock the world. Because everybody's going to pick against us. You can guarantee it.
All right, let's talk about the Monday night doubleheader that we had this week. Let's start off with the Bucks and Texans. Bucks beat the Texans to improve to 2-0 this season. The Bucks finished with 360 total yards of offense, and Rashard White's 2-yard touchdown rush in the final 10 seconds put the exclamation mark on the win. A big win for the Bucks on the road against the Texans.
Absolutely. I'm a big Baker fan. I'm a big Bucks fan. We'll get to our power rankings in a second. I currently, well, not currently, but I had the Bucks, if I'm not mistaken, in the preseason sixth. I think sixth overall or seventh overall, I forgot. But either way, they were top 10. They were top 8 for sure, top 7. This is a team that, and I had brought this up on social media earlier, I kind of feel like when I evaluate them, comparing them to Green Bay, because, Green Bay is one of the better teams in the NFC right now. They're 2-0. We already know exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles are. But if you look at what the Bucks have, they've got a few deficiencies at corner. I think that front seven is demolishing teams. They're going to continue demolishing and maul teams as the season unfolds. I love their stable of running backs when they commit themselves to the rushing attack. Baker can make plays with his legs. He can make plays with his feet. He's fearless out there. There's not a throw out there that Baker won't attempt. And you need to have a quarterback that has that type of attitude come playoff time, because at the end of the day, things aren't going to always be perfect, And when things break down, Baker can take a 3rd and 12 and turn it into a 20-yard game with his feet. He can turn it into a big play downfield to Mike Evans or a Book or a Godwin or someone like that. They've got a fast stable of running backs. The offensive line, once they get their tackle back, they're going to be even better. I think Tampa's legit. Going to Houston and winning in Houston is no short story, because that defense, when they're playing from actually when they're playing ahead at home, they're hell to deal with. Jared Goff went there last year, my Lions, and turned the ball over 5 times there, but still managed to win the game because Houston eventually choked it away in the second half. But yeah, I think Tampa's here to stay. Tampa's been a good football team the last 2 years, honestly, in the NFC, and this could potentially be their year. I don't think Tampa making the Super Bowl run is that far-fetched. If you look at how they're built, how tough they are, how gritty they are, they've got playmakers on the perimeter. They got a stable full of running backs that are playmakers, as I mentioned. They got experienced quarterback who has playoff experience. The coach has experience. The defense is only going to get better as the season unfolds. So you and I both believe the Bucks are, well, we both had the Bucks as a top 10 team. You had them, if I'm not mistaken, you had them ninth before the season. Yeah, before the season began. And I'm pretty sure we both moved them up. But what do you think about last night's game?
I think Emeka Ibuka, the Ohio State wide receiver, man, he's got a lot of talent. He made some plays yesterday. So their wide receiver core is pretty strong, especially when Chris Godwin gets back from injury. I like Baker, man. I mean, he's gritty as hell. He made some plays yesterday on his feet, right? That it was 3rd and long. It was late in the game. No one was open, but he had space to run, and that's what he did, right? And he's one of those players that it was in the 4th quarter. He got hit. Was it Gardner Johnson? I think he might have hit him, and he got back up and it got in his face.
Yeah. Baker's a gangster, man. I like the fake injury too. I loved it. And it's like he could, as loud as that stadium was, Baker's got that chip on the shoulder. Baker could hear anybody talking shit. And he faked the injury. Then you could tell he heard Chauncey Gardner say something. He hopped up so quick. Yeah, Baker turns down no opportunity to talk shit.
Well, let's talk about the Houston Texans. Obviously, they dropped to 0-2 now in the season. CJ Stroud working behind a new offensive line, essentially. Joe Mixon's not there. Who knows if he's going to come back this season. They got some issues running the football. I know Nick Chubb did have a rushing touchdown yesterday. But this team does not look like the team that we even saw last season.
No, I mean, this is similar to Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. They haven't fixed the offensive line, especially on the interior of the offensive line. They're giving up way too much pressure on the inside, and if you can't keep him clean up front, if CJ can't step up in the pocket, he's not the most mobile. He can move a little bit, but no rushing attack. They thought Nick Chubb was going to come over here and be some They thought Nick Chubb was going to go over there and be some savior in the rushing attack. That doesn't look like that's going to happen from them this year. You mentioned Mixon not being there. The defense is still one of their strong suits. So, and also, playing in that division, even though the Colts are 2-0 right now, it's still kind of up in the air in regards to how good they're going to be over the next 16 weeks. Tennessee, they've got a baby at quarterback right now. They're still kind of learning how to walk a little bit. And Jacksonville is Jacksonville. So, if you're the Texans, they're still in a decent situation. Because as long as you win your division, you're good. So playing in that division is beneficial to them. Even though they're 0-2, I think they still stand a good chance of winning that division.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that they had a big changes on that offensive line, right? They traded away Larry Tunsil to the Commanders, and everyone essentially on that line is new.
Yeah, they shipped out Kenyon Green too. I forgot where they sent Kenyon Green, but he's had a lot of change over there too, man. Nico Collins, and peace to Nico Collins, he toughs it out. He stays nicked up a little bit. Losing Tank Dell, probably the most uncoverable wide receiver in football other than Tyreek Hill, not being there is big for them. Stephon Diggs, even though Stephon Diggs only had a cup of coffee there last season, but he's not there. They traded John Mechie to Philadelphia. So it's like there's so many new moving parts around CJ. This could turn out to be a rehabilitation season for him and that team. But like I said, are they good enough this season to go far? Probably not. But are they good enough to still win that division at 0-2, competing against Jacksonville, Indianapolis, and Tennessee? Of course.
Yeah, I mean, just a lot of changes, right? Colts obviously off to an impressive start after that big one against Denver. They improved to 2-0, but I mean it's only week 2, right? But 0-2, not too good to start off the year,
But you're 0-2 in the right division.
or so we think, or so we
Well,
think.
well, yeah, well, yeah. So let me ask you this: if you're Houston right now and you're 0-2, and you look around, you see Tennessee and you see Jacksonville, and you see the Colts, but you know we can beat the Colts. We probably need to beat the Colts twice. If you start looking ahead for Houston, like a pathway for them to make the playoffs, they probably need to beat them twice to at least give themselves a legit chance. But who knows, man? 9-8 might win that division.
We don't know.
We don't know.
And I mean, I only see one of these teams making the playoffs, and that's going to be whoever wins the division.
Of course. There's no way in hell that division's getting 2 teams
Yeah.
in, man.
All right, let's talk about the second Monday Night Football game this week that was between the Chargers and the Raiders. Chargers win 2019. Defense was very strong for the Chargers. Geno Smith and the offense could not get anything going, not scoring any touchdowns. Three interceptions by Geno Smith. Just offense just looked out of whack, and Chargers start off the season 2-0.
I'm gonna push this right back on you. What happened?
Offense couldn't do.
Your overall estimation, offense, defense. What do you
The
think
defense kind of kept us in the game towards the end, right? Max had that big fumble on Mario Hampton. Geno Smith couldn't do anything, but the protection was not there. He was essentially rushed every play. Not enough time, but also Geno's got to make better decisions. I felt like they should have gotten Ashton Genty a little bit more involved than what they did. Obviously, we know Brock Bowers is dealing with a knee injury. He's playing with a brace. We know that's bothering him, right? He didn't have as big as an impact as what I thought he might have had. But I mean, just the team just did not play well, especially on the offensive side of the football.
All right, so how do you fix it? I mean, listen, the offensive line, I thought personally before the season started that, could they have made a few more upgrades on the offensive line? Sure, but I felt like they were going to be good enough to at least get the running game going. Because when you got Geno, I'm not the biggest Geno fan. I understand exactly what Geno's responsibility is for the Raiders moving forward and what is he's essentially a placeholder. He's not the long-term answer. Age-wise, he's not. Talent-wise, he's not. But he's what you guys have right now. You need to make sure if we can't do anything else, we can run the damn football. If I invest the 6th overall pick in a running back, not a quarterback, a running back, I feel like it's my duty to make sure I do everything I can to see this kid succeed. And offensively, with the offensive line, they didn't do enough. Now, does that mean that they can't make those upgrades this offseason? No. Does it mean that you have to solve each and every issue and fill each and every hole that you have in your roster with one draft? No. But it's still a position of need. Whether Geno's the starting quarterback next season, we know Genty's going to be there. We know Brock Bowers is going to be there. So you have to figure out how do you at least get the running game going? Because if you can't run the football and you can't pass protect, how in the hell are you going to score? We just talked about Kansas City, another team in your division a few minutes ago. Like, if you can't pass protect on the edge and you can't run the football and you can't crack 20 points, how do you expect to win games in the NFL in this day and age? Your defense can only do so much, and you guys don't have a lot of difference makers on the defensive side of the ball either. So it's like that secondary to me is going to be eventually the bigger issue. Like, you guys need some major upgrades in that secondary, but doesn't take much. Could it be a safety? Could it be a lockdown corner paired with a difference maker at the linebacking core or a difference maker at defensive tackle? I don't think the Raiders defensively are that far away. You guys are probably 3 playmakers on defense away from really making some noise. But when you compare the Raiders to the Chargers, and that's why another reason why I picked the Chargers to win this game a few days ago, they're just further ahead than the Raiders right now. And there's no shame in that. Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than Geno Smith. The Chargers roster from top to bottom is better than the Raiders roster right now, but the Raiders are also going through a rebuild. You're going through a situation where you had the failed Antonio Pierce experiment that went
Yeah.
terrible for a season, a season and 6 games for the most part. So, there's no shame in losing to the Chargers. You guys played a tough game. How much of that was being a divisional opponent, I don't know. But, the Raiders are going to compete. Now, the problem is this. You guys have a decent amount of holes in that team. Are you going to be bad enough to really fill them? All of them, or as many as possible? Or, are you going to be somewhere picking 12, 13 and not to say that you can't still get a difference maker, but I would have fun with the Raiders because seeing exactly what I feel like the Raiders need, you guys need to move back. And I know people don't want to talk about the draft right now, but I'm an addict for the draft. And when I look at the Raiders, man, I just think that there's quite a few players out there this season in college football that could really help this team, man. I'm a big Raider fan. I want to see the Raiders restore the glory, but Geno ain't it,
Look,
man.
it's only September. Let's hold off on talking about the draft. They're 1-1.
And it's only Geno Smith.
They're 1-1, and they got a big game against the Commanders on Sunday. They're 1-1. Jane Daniels is banged up. He's got a knee injury. Who knows if he's going to play? If he does not play, I'd like the Raiders' chance to win that football game.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about Antonio Pierce comments?
You have a quarterback?
Yeah.
We know he wanted to keep the job. He wanted to still be the head coach there in Vegas. But, I mean, to me, he should never been the head coach. And there were some players, and we know who they are, that advocated for him to be there. And, well, look what happened. Did not have the best results.
You said it. I mean, you know more about the Raiders than I do. I think that picture of him at the casino at was it 7 a.m. or something
like that. Yeah, it wasn't the best look. I don't know how many people know about that, but yeah, it's out there.
You made sure I knew about it.
I told you.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's interesting because the Raiders, they don't have a rebuilding head coach. They have a head coach that's there to win now. So, and they don't have a win now roster, so it's kind of like.
By the way, happy birthday, Pete Carroll turned 74 yesterday. Probably not the best way to celebrate your birthday by losing on Monday Night Football, but hey, happy birthday, Coach. And Chargers, more important, they're 2-0 and they're 2-0 in the division.
Yeah, but we know the Chargers are good. The story unravels for the Chargers come playoff time.
Also, Walt, we did forget to mention Khalil Mack did have a really bad injury, elbow, arm last night. He's probably going to be gone the rest of the year. No official word yet, but it just did not look good.
Yeah, and that's how many players the Chargers have lost now since like the last game of preseason. Slater, their all-pro right tackle, he's gone for the season, which was terrible for him. I know he just signed a big deal. Derwin James, though, hell of a player.
Even though he did have a hold on Brock Bowers on a 4th down.
He did, boy, but Jim Harbaugh, what did he say about Bowers? Not Bowers, what did he say about Derwin? The best safety he's ever seen. He puts a Superman cape on, and there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, the Raiders are just a little bit ahead of, not the Raiders, but the Chargers are still a little bit ahead of the Chargers. But hey, you guys are coming, man. You got to shore up that offensive line and get some stops on defense and get some extra possessions for Geno in the offense, and maybe they can start getting things.
And the Raiders will play the Chargers again at SoFi Stadium in November. So we'll see how that one goes. Well, I don't know if you saw, but yesterday there was a story in the game, right? Essentially, a camera person pointed at the direction of where the coach's box is in the stadium. And guess who was in there? Minority owner, Tom Brady, with the headset, with the Microsoft tablet. Obviously not a good look to a lot of people. Conflict of interest because we know he works for Fox. What are your thoughts on that?
Not a good look, especially with Michigan finally getting their sanctions and everything over there. Let me stop, man. Listen, you have a presser from the NFL saying, "Hey, nothing to see."
Well, I actually have the statement right here. There are no policies that prohibit an owner from sitting in the coach's booth or wearing a headset during a game. Brady was sitting in the booth in his capacity as a limited partner. NFL chief spokesperson Brian McCarthy released that statement today. Nothing to see here.
How tone deaf? Exactly. How tone deaf is the NFL? Well, listen, we understand how tone deaf the NFL can be from from time to time, but to look at your fans and say, "Hey, nothing to see here." We know this looks weird, but yeah. Look over there. Listen, man, that's a terrible look. And Brady has to be less tone deaf, less tone deaf than this, man. Listen, we know what was going on. Now it didn't lead to shit, so the team still didn't win.
Maybe he wasn't.
but
Maybe he wasn't giving play calls. I mean, I don't know, but obviously it didn't look good. And then especially when you had people on the broadcast saying that he talked to Chip Kelly 3 to 4 times a week, and then after the game at the press conference, people were asking Pete Carroll if that was true, and he said that's absolutely false.
Do you think the NFL can or should give Brady
They're
an
not going
ultimatum?
to.
Or
They're not going to.
Do they also ask? Do they even have the onions?
They're not
to
going to. Well, because if that was the case, they wouldn't let him buy part of the Raiders.
I don't even think he's that great.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Behind the microphone, is he that great behind the microphone that you honestly have to have him?
Look,
because the ultimatum should be: listen, pick one of the two, but your ass can't do both of them. This looks really ridiculous.
I don't know if you're aware, Walt, but they paid him a lot of money for him to be in the booth with Fox. I think last year, obviously his first season doing it. This year, I think to me he's gotten a lot better. But I mean, if the NFL is going to give him restrictions, I mean, I think he can't do the during the week meet with the coaches and players from the teams that are playing that Sunday because obviously conflict of interest. So I think that's one of the restrictions, right? But again, if this was an issue, the NFL would have told him, hey, you know what? You can't buy part of the Raiders.
Why is he even allowed to do Raider games?
Well,
to me, that was the first thing.
Well, he didn't call.
Off.
Like, he didn't call the game for the Raiders, though. So essentially, Fox is mostly NFC teams. But
we know none of that exists anymore. Like CBS had
Lions for the most part, though. They still carry
for over 60 years.
But they still
Lions and Packers was
well, the majority of the NFC games are still on Fox. I'm not saying that they don't do AFC games too, right? Yeah. But no, nothing to see here from the NFL. Essentially, I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. They can use all the help they can get.
Nothing to see here. Yeah. Did it lead to, at the end of the day, if the Raiders were winning, it would probably, well, they did win week 1, but if the Raiders were a bigger threat over this season to be, would be winners or whatever, it may be a bigger deal. I don't think it's that. Well, it still is a big deal because it looks really sully. It doesn't smell good.
What's it smell like?
At all. And it looks tacky. People already have these ideas about the NFL in regards to, the gambling and FanDuel and DraftKings and Bet US, all of these and it's not just the NFL, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's hockey. All of these leagues are now in bed with all of these betting sites.
Yeah.
So that right there already gives people a weird feeling about football and in sports. But now you got guys who run teams, calling games, or having headsets on, talking to coaches, quote unquote, listening in. It looks goofy.
Well, hey,
man.
Well,
it looks real.
Well, who knows? Maybe he was listening to us last week's episode, right? And he was watching. And he was watching our video This Week in Pro Football on the KC24 CBS Sports 7 Plus app. No, but I thought it was really hilarious when Peter Schrager was on the sidelines and he mentioned that Tom Brady was in the booth and the camera just zooms in, and you can kind of tell that he knew the camera was on him. Pretty funny.
Yeah, they it's funny when they catch people off guard doing stuff they have no business doing. So it's like you said, the NFL is not going to do anything about it. It didn't lead to anything. They've been known to sweep some stuff under the rug. We need to get some T-shirts made up. Nothing to see here. We just gonna wear these nothing to see here T-shirts.
All right, well, so we are running short on time, but we did want to talk about our power rankings. If you want to start off with your top 10.
Yeah, so you and I pretty much agree on the first two, Eagles and Bills. We disagree on 3 and 4, and which order they're in. I've got the Bucks as the third best team in football right now. You've got Green Bay at 3, and just flip flop those guys at 4. You've got the Rams at 5. I've got Baltimore. We both have Detroit at 6. You have the Ravens at 7. I have the Rams at 7. We both have the Chargers at 8. I have the Cardinals in my top 10 right now over the 49ers for a few different reasons. And we both do have the Indianapolis Colts. Packers and Rams, not Rams and Packers, but Packers and Bucks. We can start out by discussing that real quick. What are your thoughts on having Green Bay ahead of Tampa? Because listen, one spot is not that big of a damn deal, 3 and 4. But what do you have that you believe puts Green Bay ahead of?
Well, I
the
believe the
Bucks?
Bucks, both games they've won have been one possession games, if I'm not mistaken. The Packers have been a little bit more of a larger gap, right? To me, Micah Parsons just makes all the difference in the world in Green Bay on that defense. You can just tell a lot of the players are just playing better when he's out there, right? And to me, that was the biggest difference.
Yeah, I would say if I compare the Bucks and the Packers, just looking at the rosters, I would say that it's however people view Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield, whether you think those guys are in the same tier or you feel like Love is a tier ahead of him or Baker's a tier ahead of him. I have a little bit more faith and trust in Baker right now than I do Jordan Love. Also, that wide receiving core, I like Tampa's receiving core better overall, I believe, than Green Bay's. I like not Green Bay's, but I like Tampa's running back room. As I mentioned earlier, I like their running back room a lot more overall than Green Bay. Even though Josh Jacobs could be a better player than every running back that the Bucks have, that won't be proven until the season starts to unfold. But also, I think if you look at Tampa's defense, I like the front 7 overall a lot better. Now, you can make the argument that the Packers linebacking core may be better, but I think Tampa's defense overall is a little bit better. I think their offensive line, once they get their tackle back, is going to be a little bit better. And if you look at how Tampa plays football, now they can blow you out. There's going to be teams that aren't going to be able to handle all of those 3 receiver sets and all of those bunches. And they're going to figure out ways to get Mike Evans, Ibuka the ball, and those running backs. And, Green Bay, if you look at it, how long can Jordan Love keep this up? Because he's a gunslinger. And gunslingers, especially him, they're always looking for an opportunity to throw the football. So I think we're kind of splitting hairs. Green Bay has enough playmakers to beat Tampa, to beat Philadelphia, to beat Detroit. We already seen them beat Detroit. I will give you that. I think Green Bay has the better win on their record right now because we both, even though Detroit looked as terrible as they looked week 1, we still both believe that Detroit is a top 10 team in this league. They bounced back pretty well against Chicago. But we can make the argument that Tampa could do the same thing to Chicago. Now, we don't know. I'm not sure. I have to look at Tampa's schedule to see if they play Chicago at any point in time this season. But, beating Atlanta, who's 1-1, that's a divisional opponent. And then winning that type of game at Houston on Monday night, I thought was big. So we could be splitting hairs, but I do think the Bucks are a tad bit better than Green Bay overall.
Yeah, and again, these are week by week. So next week, our top 10 might look a little bit different. To me, the Colts being in the top 10 week 2, I was not expecting this before the season. Credit to Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts for playing well. They got a really big win over Denver on Sunday. Jonathan Taylor ran for 165 yards, and look, Daniel Jones has been efficient the first couple of weeks of the year.
I mean, they're playing a decent enough schedule too. Not too tough for them. The Colts have an opportunity to really slip into the playoffs, but people are going to handle Daniel Jones with the same type of skepticism that they handled Sam Darnold a year ago. We're going to reevaluate you every single week until the Colts are 14-win team, which I don't think the Colts are going to be a 14-win team. But when you've had the type of reputation that Daniel Jones has had, now whether it was the Giants' fault or it was his fault or, Daniel Jones and the organization are kind of sharing the blame, It looks bad on the Giants, though. This guy is his offense hasn't punted the first 2 weeks under him. The Giants are 0-2 and still having the situation that they're having. But I have to wait. I got to really wait on the Colts. I have the Colts there because I do think that the Colts defensively, they can get some stops when they need to. I believe in a rushing attack. I believe they're going to run the football and they're going to stay dedicated to running the football. Daniel Jones can also make things happen with his legs. He can move the football with his legs. And they do have some playmakers on offense. Tyler Warren's a young monster out there. Pittman's good. Downs is good. So, the Colts have some ingredients to really make a difference, I think, in that division moving forward.
Yeah, and then a couple of quick notes, Walt, before we end tonight's show. So Justin Fields, starting quarterback for the New York Jets. He's in concussion protocol. If he's not able to go, it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. That will be the starting quarterback for the Jets this week. Also, Thursday Night Football, Dolphins at Bills. Obviously, Dolphins had a really bad loss against the Patriots, 2-0 with the late interception, and the Bills keep rolling. I know Josh Allen is dealing with a nose issue. It looks like he's going to wear a visor for the foreseeable future. I don't know if he broke it, but it was bleeding pretty bad during the Jets game.
Yeah. If this Dolphins game gets out of hand, which I don't see any signs of it not getting out of hand with Buffalo, Josh Allen's going to get off the bus out of hand. Do you think, and I don't wish this on any head coach, 0-3, 0-1 in the conference. If they lose to the Bills, they'll be 0-2 in the division. They'll be 0-3 in the conference overall. You dropped a bad game to the Colts. So once you start talking about potential tiebreakers down the stretch, being 0-3 in the AFC is a death sentence. Do you think a team like the Dolphins goes ahead and decides to scrap this season?
Well, I'm not too sure we saw Mike McDaniel's post-game press conference, but it was not good. Essentially, he just kind of looked like disinterested. He wasn't, I don't know, hard to explain. I was watching, I was like, oh man, it doesn't look good. And then you saw Tyreek Hill's frustration with some of the plays. We talked about it last week, him getting open and not getting the ball.
Yeah, so you think it's over? I mean, getting smashed by the Bills, there's no shame in that, but they are, your division rival. 0-3, Tua's looking terrible. He's saying all the wrong things to the media. He's not sounding like a leader. You gave up a ton of draft capital, everything that you needed to actually build around Tua. Even though I've never been sold on him being the long-term answer for them, but you gave up a lot, man, to get Tyreek Hill. You gave up, you allowed a decent amount to leave via free agency as well. So this is the downside to not winning. When you give up that type of draft capital for a wide receiver and you take another wide receiver in the top 10 in Jalen Waddle, and you don't have the offense in place to get either one of them the football, and the offensive line isn't good. And, you've lost the past 3 off seasons, you've lost your best defensive players repeatedly year after year after year. So I don't know what's going on with the Miami Dolphins at all. I predicted they would have the number 2 overall pick behind the New Orleans Saints, but they look worse than the Saints right now.
Yeah,
honestly. If they played the Saints this weekend, I'd be pressed to take the Saints.
Yeah, and Miami's never beating Buffalo in Buffalo with Josh Allen at quarterback. So doesn't look too good. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Bills to win Thursday.
And covering the points. We don't even know what the points are right now.
It was 15.5 earlier when I saw.
Ooh, that's disrespectful.
It might go up. Who knows?
Might go down.
Perhaps. We'll find out. All right, that's going to go ahead and do it for this edition, This Week in Pro Football. Thank you, everyone out there, for watching. Me and Walt are going live on YouTube Sunday to give out our picks for Week 3 and the NFL. And make sure you guys follow us on all social media platforms. Again, thank you for watching. Have a good night.